So we are now in the Dark Ages. But Ralph, weren't the first 20 years of Marvel the Dark Ages? No. How could you call them the Dark Ages if they've never been good? You don't call the first 100,000 years of humanity the Dark Ages, because at that point we had never been good in the first place. We needed time to grow and learn. And Marvel needed time to grow and make better movies. Now we have a few good movies. Before, our expectations were really low, but then they weren't because of movies like Spider-Man 2 and X-Men 2. So when Hollywood decided, screw it, let's just make a bunch of crap, that's when we entered the Dark Ages. I just wanted to clarify that. X-Men 3: The Last Stand was, well, it was the start of the Dark Ages. I wouldn't say Elektra was the start of the Dark Ages because I don't think anyone expected anything from Elektra. Everyone knew it was gonna suck, even Netflix. But X-Men 3, everyone thought it was gonna be great. It was gonna be the conclusion of the trilogy. It was gonna be awesome. There was gonna be death and violence and heroes fighting each other. And a big clash between Magneto and Professor Xavier. It was gonna be epic. The trailers looked awesome. You saw Sentinels in the trailer. Oh my god, this movie's gonna be so awesome. And then you saw the movie, and it was a piece of fucking crap.
You have more power than you can imagine, Jean. The question is, will you control that power, or let it control you?
She seems like she's in control to me. It's not like she lost control or anything. At any point, did she kill someone with her powers or cause large amounts of damage to the city or her house? If she didn't have control of her powers, then one of the cars would flip over and kill Stan Lee. This scene is pointless and it's just bad. How about she tries to do something simple, like move a glass of water, and then at some point the glass breaks or a light explodes. Something simple, so that we really understand how important this school is. These people don't know how to control their powers, and the only ones who can help them are Professor Xavier and Magneto and the Wolverine or whatever. But no, just show her levitating cars, because it's cool, and you can put it in the trailer. Just like this scene. This scene exists just so they could put it in the trailer. Some cool action, explosions, and then there's that Sentinel head. A freaking Sentinel! This movie's gonna be... oh. It's a simulation. And now Beast works with the government? Remember that whole thing about how the government was going after the X-Men because they considered them a threat? Never mind about that. The government understands. It would be like having a black politician in the 50s, or a gay politician. Well, now I guess. It takes some time, you know. Allowing a big, blue, hairy dude in a suit to have political power doesn't happen overnight. Especially after a blue dude attacked the White House only a few years before. How is she writing without a pen? I know she has superpowers, but is there, a superpower that makes you write without a pen? What kind of superpower is that? Who would want that power? This movie's just an excuse for special effects. It's got a lame plot, it's got bad dialogue, it's got really bad acting. The whole movie is just, oh, look what that guy can do. Isn't that cool? Oh, look what he can do. Isn't that cool? Oh, look at that. How awesome is that? Oh, look at that. Whoa, look at this guy. It gets old after 10 minutes, let alone an hour and 40 minutes. I should also mention that Bryan Singer, the director of X-Men 1 and 2, didn't direct this one. Instead, they got Brett Ratner, who made such hits as... So this movie is not in very good hands. That's why most of the actors just phoned in their performances. Hell, Cyclops was barely in it. He had 2 really short scenes and then he dies. And now they have a cure for mutants. It just gets rid of whatever powers you have, I guess. Just whatever. It completely gets rid of any mutation in your DNA. It would be like having a cure for Down syndrome or cancer. It just finds whatever's wrong with your DNA or blood and gets rid of it in a matter of seconds. Just like that. And now Jean is alive again because, and remember when I praised the other 2 movies for making the superheroes not look goofy? This movie fails at that. Why are you wearing that?
Nice helmet.
Keeps my face pretty.
No, but seriously, why are you wearing that? Then Professor Xavier and Mystique leave the movie just because they don't want to be in it anymore.
Your cities will not be safe. Your streets will not be safe. You will not be safe.
What a shit speech. That wasn't intimidating or well written at all. Your streets will not be safe. Your homes will not be safe. Your family will not be safe. Your schools will not be safe. The bus will not be safe. The local post office will not be safe. Starbucks will not be safe. And then Magneto tears up the Golden Gate Bridge and connects it to Alcatraz because it looks cool when you put it in the trailer. Then this is it. The last stand, I guess. So it has to be epic. This is the last stand until Days of Future Past. then that's The Last Stand. This is The Last Stand, and then the next movie is The Lastest Stand. This movie doesn't even matter. This movie has nothing to do with the rest of the X-Men movies. You could skip this one entirely, and you wouldn't be lost at all watching Days of Future Past. Then Magneto gets cured, and that's how they defeat him. It wasn't like some epic battle between Professor Xavier and Magneto. They just stab him with a few syringe shots, and that's the end of the movie. But then Magneto moves a chess piece. So the cure doesn't work? Or was it only temporary? Or does it just work on everyone except Magneto? Because he has superpowers in Days of Future Past, so it must wear off or something. Or maybe they just forgot about this movie. Needless to say, this movie was a total disaster. It didn't make any sense, and most audiences hated it. It was just a very bland movie, which is what you would expect from a director like Brett Ratner. And this begins the X-Men's decline into shittiness. Then we got a Ghost Rider movie. And, yeah. To be fair, a lot of people were pretty excited about this movie. I was excited. I saw it in the theater. So I sat in that theater, ready for a Ghost Rider movie that was gonna be fun. And it just sucked so bad. This is another movie that doesn't really know what it wants to be. Because Nicolas Cage is in it, and Nicolas Cage gives a great performance as usual. He's not bad in the movie, but he's fun. And he makes a good Ghost Rider, I'll say that. If anyone was gonna be Ghost Rider, I'd pick Nick Cage. The Ghost Rider kind of looks like crap, but I'll forgive it, because it's an older movie. But the problem is, this movie's pretty terrifying. Does this movie want to be fun, or does it want to be really scary? Because for a kid, this movie's pretty horrifying. People's souls get sucked out, and this guy's eye falls off, and people burn alive. And alright, so it's not made for little kids. It's clearly not made for old people, because there's lots of fire and yelling. And old people don't like that. So we'll scratch off old people. This movie's not made for 20-year-olds or 30-year-olds because it's so stupid that they wouldn't enjoy it. And it's not made for teenagers because there are a few fun moments in it, but most of the movie is really boring. So basically, this movie isn't made for anyone. It'll scare kids, it'll bore teenagers, it's stupid to adults, and it's too loud and obnoxious for old people. Add on to that the fact that the script is shit, the acting is shit, the directing is shit, the music is shit, everything is shit. So as if I had to even tell you, Ghost Rider is not a good movie. It's not even worth seeing Nicolas Cage, to be quite honest. Then we've got the Fantastic Four 2, Rise of the Silver Surfer. More like Rise of the piece of, This movie's bad. This movie's even worse than the other one. Because the other one, I'll give it this. It was funny. This movie's not funny. This movie is trying to be funny, but it fails. All the jokes in here and the banter between all of them is so bad. And the product placement, holy shit, the product placement. They aren't even subtle about it. One of the Fantastic Four suits has a bunch of advertisements on it. The whole movie. You studio, you bunch of whores. And as if they weren't whores enough, they have the Fantastic Four-mobile. Or I think they call it the Fantastic Car. Brought to you by Dodge. So first off, this is clear product placement from Dodge. And second off, this thing is just here to sell toys. When one of your characters can fly, why do you need a hovercraft? It's like when you see a Spider-Man car toy. Like, why does Spider-Man need a car? Can't he swing around the city? Things like that are in cartoon shows and movies just to sell toys.
You can build a spider helicopter to help save her. Arm the weapons. Load the heroes. And fly into action.
Kids can soar into battle with this 12-inch scale Spider-Man figure and webcopter. Pretend to fight crime with your Spider-Man figure with 5 points of articulation. Or fasten your figure in the webcopter. Spin the blades manually. And keep a watchful eye from the sky. You can even attach the launching web missile accessory to your Spider-Man figure's arm, or attach it to the webcopter. And press the button to fire the web missile. The Marvel Titan Hero series, Spider-Man with Webcopter, is for kids ages 4 and up, and comes with 12-inch scale Spider-Man figure and webcopter vehicle. Adult assembly is required. The Marvel Titan Hero series, Spider-Man with Webcopter, from Hasbro.
I know because I have one. Look at this shit. I think you just press the button here and... Oh, God. Oh, shit. The Fantastic Four were the biggest whores when it came to toys. Like, look at this thing. Look at it.
Super Stretch Mr. Fantastic can stretch up to 3 times his size and go to any length to defeat the evil Dr. Doom.
It's clobbering time!
With Thing feet and Thing hands, all the earthquake and boom-shaking power of the Thing can be yours.
I am the Thing! I am the Human Torch!
With the Human Torch mask and gloves, loaded with the sounds and missile-firing action of the Human Torch.
Yeah!
Is Dr. Doom finished?
Pizza! Dad!
Who the hell would wear that? That looks horrifying. I want you to imagine someone stabbing you in the chest wearing that mask. Imagine that being the last thing you ever see. Oh, I take it back. That may be the worst costume I've ever seen in my life. You've got to be a really stupid kid to wear that.
I am the Human Torch!
How come Reed's clothes stretch? Like, did he build a suit and tie that stretch? Wouldn't his arms stretch and his suit stay the same size? And then Johnny has this thing, like, when you touch him, you switch powers. And they have that in the movie, 1, so they can show Jessica Alba naked again. And 2, so they can sell toys. Here's the Fire version of Invisible Girl. Here's the Thing version of Johnny Storm. Here's the Thing, Mr. Fantastic, and Invisible Girl, all combined with the Human Torch. What a bunch of whores. Hey, how many whores does it take to screw in those light bulbs? 3 chipmunks? Then the Silver Surfer is like going around the world, putting holes in the world. And then Dr. Doom just finds him, I guess, and goes, let's team up. And Silver Surfer goes no and hits him. But then there's also like a camera that caught footage of it. And then Dr. Doom becomes a member of the US military, even though he was a terrorist in the last movie. And then, of course, he turns against the army. And then they go in the Fantastic Four car and they fight. And then they land in Hong Kong or something. Or Tokyo, maybe. I don't know. Where Asian people live. Let me correct myself. It wasn't a city. It was just like a little street. Because that's all they could afford. They have this cheap set. And that's where the rest of this movie takes place, in this cheap set. When Dr. Doom and the Human Torch fight, it's all CGI. And he kills Dr. Doom in like 5 seconds, so it was a really boring fight. And then Silver Surfer sees Jessica Alba and like, oh, you're hot. I guess I'll defend the planet after all. And he kills Galactus and yeah, it blows up. And then they have a wedding. Like, who are all these people? Oh, the movie's over. Okay. So that's Fantastic Four 2. That's all the time I'm giving it. So we can get on to the big movie that everyone wants me to talk about. Spider-Man 3D in IMAX with real 3D glasses. To be quite honest with you, I don't think Spider-Man 3 is that bad. For the Dark Ages, I mean. It's definitely not the worst Spider-Man movie. We've got Mark Webb to thank for those. Is it a great movie? No. Does it have its problems? Yes. Is it as good as Spider-Man 1 or 2? Nope. But there was a point in this movie, about halfway through, where I thought it was the best Spider-Man movie. The thing is, the second Spider-Man movie is so damn good that it made me really care about these characters. And while the Spider-Man stuff in this movie isn't all that interesting, the dynamic between Peter Parker, Mary Jane Watson, and James Franco is actually really compelling. The human characters are actually more interesting than anything that goes on with Spider-Man, and I think that's where this movie fails. The New Goblin is a good villain. Spider-Man's fight with the New Goblin is really cool, but then the Sandman is introduced. And even for the Spider-Man universe, this is really stupid. Some guy falls into the thing, and his cells are mixed with sand, and he becomes the Sandman. The other villain we've got is Venom. There's just a meteorite that falls onto the planet, and Spider-Man gets it for some reason. So Spider-Man is in the black suit for a while, and this stuff is actually pretty cool, because it affects Peter Parker as a character and makes his character more interesting. And while everyone else hated the scenes where he was the bad Spider-Man, I was laughing my ass off during these scenes. I'm sorry if you didn't like them, but I thought they were pretty goddamn funny. Then we get to Topher Grace, He doesn't work as Venom at all. His motivation is weak. He gets the Venom suit just because he happens to be near Spider-Man when he takes his off. He just happens to be there when Peter Parker's taking off the black Spider-Man suit and it lands on him. So yeah, he's a weak villain with a weak motivation. Sandman is a weak villain. His motivation is interesting, but he doesn't really fit in this movie. Maybe if they had combined the two characters, Venom and Sandman, and created one character, that would have been just fine. Have a guy who's trying to get money for his daughter, so he robs banks, and then Spider-Man catches him. There could be something in there about how he killed Uncle Ben, and Spider-Man takes his revenge, nearly kills him, and then somehow he gets hold of the suit and becomes Venom, instead of becoming the stupid Sandman. The first 2 acts of this movie are really solid. They're funny, they're interesting, I love all the character stuff. But then there's a point at the end of the movie where it just gets a little bit too stupid. And as silly as these movies are, they're still grounded in reality. But then there's a point where there's just an alien and a big guy made of sand, and it just gets too stupid. The whole movie was a balancing act, and unfortunately, Sam Raimi lost his balance. But like I said before, I don't think it's a bad movie. And I think if you were to watch all 3 of these movies, you wouldn't be left unsatisfied. So now they tried to make a Punisher movie again. This movie is so horrible, but it is the best thing ever. It's not a good movie. It's not even close to a good movie, but this movie is so goddamn funny. I would recommend it to all of you. The gore is amazing.
I'm calling this in. Put your hands behind your back.
The characters are so over the top.
I'm gonna get my applesauce back. Did you know kidneys and applesauce are a delicacy in Sweden? Did you know that?
The dialogue, the acting is so bad.
With all due respect, Captain, that is bullshit.
And the action is awesome. They are done trying to make a serious Punisher movie, and so they just have fun. Please watch this movie. I highly recommend Punisher Warzone, and it's really sad that not a lot of people saw it, because it's such a great movie. Well, this is it. The bottom of the barrel. This is pretty much as bad as movies get. Every single problem a movie like this could have, this movie has. I honestly don't even know where to start. Let's start with the fact that it's really boring. See, the Wolverine is invincible. He can't die. So these scenes are boring to watch. When he's with the X-Men, there's suspense, because you know that the rest of them could die. But when you're just watching Wolverine by himself, fighting a guy who's also invincible, it's really boring. Plus, Wolverine is a really boring character. He's good at yelling. That's all he's good at. When he's working with other people, he's entertaining. But when he's by himself, you just start to realize how boring he really is. This whole movie doesn't even matter. He loses his memory at the end of the movie anyway, so he didn't remember any of this. It didn't affect his character in any way. I guess he got metal claws. That's about it. He forgot about everything else. So what does it matter? This whole movie could have been summed up in 5 seconds. Did we really need a whole movie filled with terrible effects and action and acting to let us know that, hey, Wolverine's kind of depressed because his wife died? The opening credits are awesome. You see Wolverine fighting in every major war. Why can't we get a movie about that? Just like X-Men 3, this movie is just an excuse to show superpower. It's an effects extravaganza, so who cares about the story? Comic book characters show up for absolutely no reason. They show up just so the nerds in the audience could go, oh look, it's the Blob, I know that character, and then they never show up again. I'm sure people got excited when they heard about Gambit, and then Gambit's in the movie for 5 minutes, and he's played by Taylor Kitsch. And then John Wraith is played by Will.i.am.
We hunted our own kind, Logan.
What's the end game?
There's a special place in hell for the things we did.
Shouldn't have done that, because now I'm going to kill you.
Needless to say, he stinks. But the biggest waste of a character in this movie, maybe in any movie ever, is Deadpool. He is a character that is known for his witty humor, so he has his mouth sewn shut the next time he shows up, and then he has laser eyes for no reason. Not only that, Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool, even though he was in that Blade movie from earlier. Also, a few years later, he played the Green Lantern. Isn't it hard enough I have to keep track of all these movies and what universe each of them is set in? Now they're casting the same actors in different film series. Chris Evans is the Human Torch and Captain America. What about the Hulk? They got different actors to play the Hulk in each movie. First it was Eric Bana. Then they rebooted the Hulk, and they cast Edward Norton. And then they cast Mark Ruffalo. Wasn't that Hulk movie set in the same universe as the Avengers movie? Aren't these supposed to be the same Hulks? Why do they look different? This is the point where Fox just stopped giving a shit. And the audience stopped giving a shit. Those great X-Men movies we used to know are gone. Now they're just loud, boring pieces of crap. Excuses to show powers and special effects. Excuses to get Hugh Jackman to be the Wolverine again. They don't give him anything to do. It's an absolute waste of time, money, and effort. What little effort there was put into this movie was completely wasted. There has to have been at least one guy who gave a shit about this movie. Clearly it wasn't the director or the actors, but there must have been like a sound guy who went, I want to make it big in Hollywood. I'm going to give my all in this film. And unfortunately, his effort was wasted on this colossal turd. After X-Men Wolverine, or X-Men Origins Wolverine, whatever the hell it's called, people lost a lot of respect for the X-Men. No one really cared about the X-Men anymore. They were just a cash cow that everyone was tired of. So since the property was basically dying, I guess some studio executives said, maybe we should get a talented person to direct this next X-Men movie. Let's get the guy who directed Kick-Ass. Kick-Ass is a pretty good movie. Just get that guy. Then we got X-Men First Class. And this is the beginning of the end of the Dark Ages. While I wouldn't call this movie great, it's pretty solid.
Just like my
It definitely injected some new life into the X-Men series, and it made everyone kind of give a shit again. The movie didn't do that great financially, but later on people discovered it. The fact that it was a period piece made it much more interesting. We got to see all these characters that we know and love as younger people. Seeing Magneto and Professor Xavier as like 20, 30-year-olds is awesome. And not only that, the acting is fantastic from both of them. Jennifer Lawrence is good in it too, but really the best scenes in the movie are the ones between Professor Xavier and Magneto. The directing and the style is really great too. Again, it injected some new life into the X-Men series. Now, would I call it a perfect movie? No. Because while I do really like the stuff with Professor Magneto and Xavier, where the movie doesn't work is everything else. The plot is dumb. As much as this movie was praised for not being as shitty as those other two, I would consider the plot just as bad. It's really over the top and silly, and the movie doesn't seem to think it's over the top and silly. And so they treat the subject matter as if it were serious and dramatic. There are lots of scenes that are unintentionally funny, and the ending is really dumb. Also, this movie has some scenes that are cringeworthy. All of the mutant pride stuff, the dialogue is so bad. The X-Men movies have always been an allegory for gay rights and women's rights, but never before has it been so over the top and ham-fisted. Like, holy shit, these scenes are so bad. It's like they're making the movie for dummies who don't get the message, and so they just try to shove it down their throat.
Just like my
So they tried Ghost Rider again. This time they got talented directors to direct it. Neville Dean and Taylor. If you don't know Neville Dean and Taylor, they made the Crank movies. If you haven't seen the Crank movies, well, here's a 10-second clip to sum it up. The whole movie is like that. Their movies are extremely entertaining. They don't give a shit about plot, character. They don't care if anything makes sense. All they care about is entertaining you for an hour and a half until you go home. They don't care about anything else, and I admire them for that. So they're pretty much the perfect choice for a Ghost Rider movie. No one cares about the mythology of Ghost Rider. They just want to sit down and watch an entertaining Ghost Rider movie. But here's the problem. They did not have control over the project. Once again, the producers feel the need to control everything that happens in the movie. The producers said, we need this script, we need it to be PG-13, and you can't do anything too crazy. So they basically just made a really bland movie that kind of looks cool at times. It isn't very good, and in some aspects, it's actually worse than the other one. The problem is that they restrain these guys. They should be allowed to do whatever they want. They tried to get Nicolas Cage to be crazy, which, don't get me wrong, it worked sometimes, but sometimes it didn't. This movie just had a really bad script. And I know in a movie like this, I'm not supposed to give a shit about the script, but they spend so much time on the story and the bad character development and the bad dialogue that it just becomes boring. When you limit their creativity, they can't make stuff like this. It's a damn shame, but this movie isn't very good either. Some people actually consider it worse than the other one. I honestly don't see the difference. Then the Wolverine came out, and alright, we're pretty much out of the Dark Ages by now. The superhero movies know where they're going. They experimented for a while, they tried to see what they could get away with, and now there's pretty much a formula that you have to follow. So we're out of the Dark Ages, but at the same time, these movies have started to become bland, because there's a formula that works, and if you don't follow that same exact formula, the movie doesn't do very well. So we don't have bad movies anymore, we just have mediocre ones. Wolverine is one of these movies. It's got some good action, it's got an average plot, it has some intrigue, and they've got a fight, and the special effects are decent. The problem is, it's just bland. There's a bland love story, there's bland dialogue, and again, it's about the Wolverine, which isn't a very interesting character. Another huge problem is that it's PG-13. I want to see Wolverine tear someone's guts out. I want to see a Wolverine do this. I want to see Wolverine take on the Yakuza. I don't want to see him fighting a giant samurai made of metal. But you have to follow that formula. We can't have Wolverine attacking a normal crime syndicate. We need to have a big villain with a big plan. It's just very bland. And I don't remember anything about this movie. And I just saw it yesterday. Let's compare this very mediocre film about Wolverine to X-Men Days of Future Past. X-Men Days of Future Past is a really good movie. It's not about Wolverine again. It's about a bunch of different characters. This is everything we want in a movie like this. It's funny, it's entertaining, it's fast-paced, the effects are great, and most importantly, it's unpredictable. This is a really interesting way of rebooting the series, because they didn't reboot it exactly, but they basically went back in time to before any of this shit happened. I'm really excited to see where the X-Men go now. It's not just about Wolverine again. It won't be the same crap. They're gonna try harder, hopefully. I hope they learn their lesson. This is the shit that'll make them money. An entertaining, lighthearted, fun, but at the same time, dramatic film. With complicated characters, subtle subtext, and some action. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not looking for Citizen Kane Part 2. I just want to be entertained. So now I'm going to answer the questions you all have. 1, why didn't you talk about any of the Avengers movies? Well, I'm saving all that shit for Part 3. And 2, you didn't talk about the Amazing Spider-Man movies. You know, the reboot of the Spider-Man movies? Yeah, I didn't mention them really. The Amazing Spider-Man I already reviewed, and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is gonna take a while to talk about. The fact of the matter is these two movies are so awful that I can't cover them in this amount of time. They deserve their own review. These films raped my childhood, basically, and I'm not gonna stand for it. These are the worst things ever, and I'm not gonna put up with it, and you shouldn't either. If you're a fan of Spider-Man like I am, go to www.wewantspidermanback.net so we can bring Spider-Man back. I'm going right now to the Sony offices in California to protest this new Spider-Man movie that's coming out. They're making an Amazing Spider-Man 3, and they're also making a Venom movie, and they're also making a Sinister Six movie. No! Give the rights to Marvel. They'll make something creative and interesting with it. Stop ruining Spider-Man. This looks like shit. Mike, I'm going out for a while.
What the hell are you doing?
I want Spider-Man back! He's part of my childhood, and these criminal scum, they're taking Spider-Man and raping him!
The movie's fine. Fine.
You know how moronic you are? You just take the... You're not gonna stop me from leaving this house! Listen, these Spider-Man movies, they suck. They're awful. They're made just for the money, and I'm not gonna stand it anymore. If you're a Spider-Man fan, you shouldn't stand it too. Go to www.wewantspidermanback.net to get Spider-Man back. Meet me at the Sony offices. Oh, shit! Oh! What the hell was that for? Jesus Christ! Mike? You gonna put thumbtacks on? What the fuck? Jesus Christ, it's a BB gun! Alright, my brother obviously doesn't want me to leave the house at all. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna just have to run for it. And if he locks the front door, we're gonna have to go out the back door, but I don't think he's gonna let me leave without a fight. So worst case scenario, we go downstairs and I don't know, grab a BB gun from down there and try to fight him off. Okay, this is war now. My brother doesn't want me to leave the house, but I'm gonna leave the house if I have to. Okay, ready? You gotta follow me. You gonna keep up? Oh, jeez! Okay, this is not working. It's time for plan B. I used to take karate a long time ago, and this was my sparring gear. So it may be a little tight because I was around 8, 9 years old, but I think it'll be okay. Where the hell's all this smoke coming from? Did you take my smoke machine? Michael! Where'd you put the smoke machine, Mike? Guys, find the smoke machine. Stop filming me! Get the smoke machine! You checked my studio? Yeah, it's coming from here. How dare he come into my studio? Where's that music coming from? Holy shit! I can't see anything! Oh my god! Michael, why did you do this to me? Michael! Where the fuck is everything? I can't breathe! Mike! Alright, open the door! Open the door, stop filming me! Oh, Jesus, come on! Mike, stop! Stop! Do you realize what you're doing? Look at all the Look at all the goddamn smoke in here! Stop it! This isn't funny anymore! What the f are you doing? Look at all the goddamn smoke! I can't see anything! Can you even see me? Answer me! Holy shit! Ow! What the I can't even breathe! This isn't funny anymore. I give up. Take your Spider-Man movies. I don't care anymore. Go home.
Where you going?
Done with this shit. Someone undo this. Turn the cameras off! Like, what's Mom gonna think when she comes home? Here, take the sign.
I won't be coming back anymore. Maybe on the cover of a magazine. I'll be taking a dive, cooler in the water. It's not my apple